Apple remains one of Berkshire's top 5 holdings, according to today's report. Shares finished the week lower by about 2%. They snapped an 8-day winning streak yesterday, despite beating on the top and bottom lines after the bell on Thursday. Let's bring in CNBC technology correspondent Steve Kovac to discuss Apple. Hey, Steve.
Hey, Mike. Yeah, I mean, you guys were saying the tariffs were the talk of the town out there in Omaha. They were the talk of the town in Cupertino 2 days ago when I was out there reporting on this earnings report. And what we learned really is Tim Cook's management of the supply chain ahead of those April tariffs. So what he told us, Jim Cramer and I talked to him about these earnings reports, and what he told us was they were able to kind of move supply around in order to mitigate the worst effects of the tariffs right now in the June quarter, and telling us that this quarter, in the June quarter, they're expecting more than half of the iPhones sold in the United States will have been sourced in India, which, of course, has that lower tariff rate compared to the massive one they're facing over in China. Also, kind of painting this picture that, you know, what we can expect moving forward in the months and years to come, that more and more products that are sold in the U.S. will be sourced not from China, but from India for the iPhone side. And then for other products, that means like AirPods and watches and things like that, and Macs, that's all going to come from Vietnam. In fact, if you go out and buy one of those products right now and look at the back of it and see where it's made, it's likely going to say Vietnam right now. So, and a lot of this started years ago, especially during COVID, when they had all those COVID shutdowns and things like that. But look, guys, the headline number, of course, is they're still expecting an impact from these tariffs. $900 million cost is what they're estimating, and it's going to hit margins just a little bit. Margins are still strong, between 45.5% and 46.5% is what they're estimating here. And then there's the clarity beyond the June quarter, which is what investors were really pushing for and analysts are really pushing for on the call. We saw a couple downgrades on Wall Street yesterday because of this. There's just no clarity what the tariff picture really looks like beyond the June quarter, and that's why we saw shares down better than 3.5% yesterday, guys.
Hey, Steve, I will tell you, Tim Cook is here. He's been coming to this meeting for many years at this point because Apple's his largest shareholder, and, you know, Apple is Berkshire's largest stake, or has been. We don't know exactly what the latest quarters. He's here. Saw him from afar last night, and I was just out on the floor of the convention center. There's not only a seat for Tim Cook, but about 4 guests. It just says Cook, Cook, Cook across 5 seats. So he's going to be here in the audience. I think he wasn't there just now. I was hoping to grab him beforehand. Didn't make it because I think we started a little earlier than we generally do with this programming. But obviously, it's a big question, and one that some shareholders had written in questions about, too. Why the sales in Apple and how big of a position it's going to continue to be.
Yeah, I mean, and Steve, it is still, Berkshire owns 2% of the company at last report. So it's not as if this is, a sort of a trivial
by far their largest holding
investor in Apple right now. So I'll also be interested to hear, Steve, do you think there's been any discernible demand effects, aside from the tariffs, if in fact overseas, a lot of what you see in terms of maybe backing away from American brands even bears on Apple at all? Yeah,
2 things. Well, first, let's talk about American demand real quick, because this was really interesting. What Tim Cook told me a couple days ago was, remember, ahead of those April 2nd tariff announcements, everyone was kind of talking about pull forward demand. Are we going to see people rushing out buying iPhones ahead of time? Tim Cook told me he saw no evidence of that, at least in the March quarter, that people were kind of anticipating and buying ahead of time, and therefore implying the growth we saw in iPhone was organic demand. This was, forget tariffs. This was people were just excited to buy the new phones. They had a new model that launched. But you're totally right, Mike, to point out the anti-American sentiment. We've been seeing this for a number of years, even before President Trump initiated these tariffs, that Huawei came back online and started making phones again a couple years ago. And just quarter over quarter, year over year, Huawei continues to eat into the market share in China. China sales were down to $16 billion. Now, the growth rate is not as bad as it was before. It was still negative 2% in China year over year. Not as bad as that negative 11 that we saw in the December quarter. But still, China is way down from its peak. And part of that, at least, is that negative sentiment or this nationalistic view that we have to buy these homegrown brands like Oppo and Huawei. So that's just a trend that we're going to continue to see. And then the question becomes, what exciting thing can Apple do over in China to get those customers excited. Some people are saying that might mean a new kind of phone design, those foldable phones that those customers typically like. And then, of course, there's artificial intelligence. We know that big miss that they had in this past quarter, delaying that big Siri AI update. That caused a lot of analysts to reduce their expectations for iPhone sales. And in China, they love specs, they love AI, they love cool technical things like that. And when Apple can't offer it, but one of those Chinese brands can, that's why we see so many people gravitate to that, Mike.